Hey everyone, we are live. Welcome to workshop number 1 between Land Insights and Launch Control. Joined today by Ari Owens from Land Insights. How are you, Ari?
I'm doing wonderful. Appreciate you having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to be pretty much leading the show today because our topic is how to find high return land flipping markets. So we're going to really get in there and look at the Land Insights tool and look for some ways that people can very, very quickly filter, sort, evaluate the land markets they want to get into. Because our goal for this whole series, which I'll get to the agenda in just a second for everybody joining, but our goal for this series is I said to Ari and to Rylan maybe a few weeks ago when we're kind of brainstorming this whole thing. And I said, let's try to get a ramp up to 100K. And I meant to go from 0 to 100K in your business in total. And you guys looked at me and said, no, we can do that a month. I said, 100K a month? You're like, yeah, we can do that. We can get, this is a plan that will get land investors. If this is followed, the blueprint is followed,
Yep.
you're going to get to 100K per month in your land investing business. That's obviously a 7-figure business model. So, this is going to be exciting. And it really starts, obviously, with, picking where you're going to start pinging those sellers and finding that land.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think it's going to be a great talk today. I have some really good nuggets. If you have Land Insights, I'm going to show you some things that if you were to use SMS marketing, it's just going to enlighten the way you think about marketing in general. Open yourself up to new avenues that maybe you didn't think you were able to accomplish, especially at the stage you're at in your land business. And then if you don't have Land Insights, I'm gonna lay out a lot of knowledge about what's possible in land investing, because a lot of the tools out there, they just don't give you the entire gambit, everything that you need to really set yourself up for success. And so you find yourself piecemealing everything together, and it's sometimes a crapshoot. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, let me show you a quick look here at our agenda for this whole series. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to find those high return land flipping markets, and we're going to do this every Tuesday at the same time. Right. So if you're on today, bookmark it. Join us again at this time next Tuesday. The next one is going to be, we're going to take those markets that Ari identifies today. We're going to show how to further segment that data and start setting up an A/B texting model in Launch Control to really fine tune your process, your metrics, and make sure you're getting the most discovery calls to deals out of what you're setting up. On the 25th, Rylan's going to come on and we're going to do a real deep dive into exactly how the Land Insights team runs their land acquisitions business, with Launch Control being an integral part of that system. And if we can, we're even going to do a live batch send and run through some of the responses so you guys can see how it works in real time. And then, the idea of this process in the beginning, what Ari and I are talking about today, is identifying markets and then leveraging Launch Control to tee up those conversations with sellers. But once you do that, and you do that well, you're going to have deals that you need to dispo. Right? So on April 1st, we're going to get into the dispo side of things, a real masterclass with the Land Insights team. And then on the April 8th, we want you guys to be able to come back and ask questions. Now, the reason we did this as an April 8th Q&A and we didn't have a new focus on this is because ideally, we want you guys to have both tools accessible right now. All right? We want you to have your subscription set for Launch Control, your subscription set for Land Insights, so that you can take what you're learning week by week here and put it into action. So we want you to be able to, this to be day one of that path to 100K. So if you haven't gotten signed up for one or both of the tools yet, there are links at the top of the chat you can follow. And then Ari and I are also going to share QR codes, scannable QR codes at the end, so you can kind of get up and running, get both systems in place, and again, just really hit the ground fast in terms of getting up to that 100K per month number that we're hoping for. All right, Ari, I'm going to hand this one over to you, my man. You can do a screen share, and yeah, let's get into the nitty gritty.
awesome. Well, before we do that, I just really quickly want to say, so Michael just emphasized that every week we're going to have this process that really outlines the entirety, right? Of taking your market once you find it and marketing to it and getting that dispo and just seeing the entire process. Every single one of these webinars should leave you with some actionable steps, right? So in today's webinar, we're looking for high value markets. That means that by the end of this call, you should be thinking about how you can find those with Land Insights, and your homework will be going and looking for those, establishing them, getting them ready for next week's webinar. This is going to be a very step-by-step process that gives you every tool you need to succeed at this. So that means you don't need to do everything in one night, right? This is not something that should stress you out. This should excite you. This should get you amped up. So I'm going to go ahead and present my screen here, and let me know once you can see this.
Should be up now. Yeah, everybody can see that.
Awesome. Give me some love in the chat. Awesome. So I appreciate everybody hopping in, because this is going to be something that is going to change the way you see land investing. First and foremost, we offer a ton of different options when it comes to doing market research. Whatever you might be targeting, that's really where your search begins, right? So if you don't know what you're targeting, you need to understand, am I targeting rural rec? Am I targeting a subdivide opportunity? Am I targeting an infill property that I can maybe wholesale to builders? All of those questions need to be answered before you start really looking around for your market, because the market is going to really be indicative of the property type that you're looking at. Now, that being the case, you'll see this map is gorgeous. And of course, if you're Land Insights user, you should know this. I'll test you on it. But this heat map is relative. Okay. That means everything in the US is being compared to each other right now. Every county, and if we go to the zip code view, every zip code. We're going to break down the framework of this map so that we can understand what it means to find a high value market and how we can actually do that step by step. So since this is relative, there are different markets, different states, different counties, different zip codes. Every single one has something a little bit different about it. So if we're looking at multiple states at one time, we're always going to find there's differences between those states that impact the demand in each state. It could be something as simple as weather, but it can go into the actual size of the county. Maybe the volume within that size dictates what the demand actually looks like on paper, right? And in Land Insights, you have access to 40 plus different data points when you're doing your market research. So it really matters to understand what market am I looking at? And instead of cross-examining two large markets, you want to hone in as close as you can so that you can eliminate so much of the noise when you're looking at new markets. The crazy thing is you can do this so simply just by coming down here to our market table and typing in the state, right? Oh, this is actually the county. If you go ahead and put in the county or the state abbreviation, you'll actually see just that state show up. Now that we're looking at one state, the cool thing here is we get to begin searching based on that initial question we asked ourselves. What property type am I looking for? By looking for info lots, you're going to start looking from maybe 0 to a quarter acre, or maybe a quarter acre to 1 acre, or 1 to 2. Pretty soon we're actually going to be releasing a ton of other acreage ranges here, so you can dial it in very specifically. But in this case, if we wanted to look for info lots, we could immediately see both by the acreage range and our heat map data point where things are moving and what the activity actually looks like in the state of Minnesota. So the heat map data point, this is really important because there are 3 things that really affect this heat map. The first is that acreage range, right? The second is our heat map data point. This heat map data point is going to show us whatever we want to see in terms of cold to hot. So if I'm right now looking at active, I'm looking at least activity to most activity. If I want to look at volume, I want to see where all the comps are. I can easily shift to that view. The same is true for sell-through rate. If I want to see where things are moving the quickest in the corresponding range of data that I'm looking at, and I can even see days on market. So the cool thing here is I get to control the market and how I perceive the market. That means everybody is seeing this data through a different lens, right? If we're all targeting different things, our outcomes are all different. This is a great way to create your own race. Okay. The last way that you can affect this this heat map and the map that is showing you these markets is actually by filtering. We allow you to go through the data of each market and actually filter out what you don't like. So if you have a minimum criteria for, let's just say, speed, right? Sell-through rate, or volume. Maybe you want to see at least a minimum number of properties moving per month, per 3 months, whatever it might be. You can put that criteria in here and you can vet that out incredibly fast just by coming down here, choosing a filter, let's say at least 10%, and it's going to immediately shift the data on your table. So this is going to allow you to start seeing the markets that are just so much more valuable to you based on the strategy that you're trying to achieve. Okay. Now that being said, I want to take this to the rural rec game. LIA or Land Insights was kind of founded on these principles of Sumner Healey's group, LIA, and I will say that it is more focused on rural rec than anything, just because the majority of the U.S. is rural. And so as we look at 5 to 100 acres, we can immediately start looking at filters that reflect that 5 to 100 acre range, but we want to be careful not to look at too specific of a data point that will shift us away from a very solid conclusion. If it shifts us into feeling confused or uncertain, we kind of know we're on the wrong path. So what I mean by that is if we come down here to the data table, I'm actually going to remove all my filters. Right now, we're just looking at everything. Heat mapped by sell-through rate. So what's the fastest and what's the least fast? I can come down here and actually filter by sell-through rate or sort by sell-through rate. In 6 months, if that market is not moving, maybe I just don't want to see it. You can actually come down here and see there's a number of markets that have no activity whatsoever. So if I actually just put in a greater than 0 filter, I can immediately eliminate those, whether there's a lot or only a few. The cool thing is this is going to allow you to streamline how quickly you find a market. It's not just the first time you do this, but every single time after. Because after you come down here and you sort through the data and you find what works in this county, right? If nothing's worked in 3 months, maybe we want to avoid that as well. Let's go ahead and put something in here. Once we've found something that we feel comfortable starting with, and to be fair, I might actually put 1 or 2 more filters on this. Let's go ahead and go to the activity really quick and just vet where there is actually activity. So I'm going to go based on pending sell-through rate and see where things are really moving for 5 to 100 acres. I'm going to go ahead and put in, I want to see at least 4 properties have sold in the last 3 months. These are bigger properties out in Minnesota. And I know there's a lot of smaller properties on lakes out here. Okay, so now we've got a map that I think can really lead us to some great counties. Now that I have this, what I wanted to mention is you can save this. You don't have to start over every single time. You can save this filter. It's going to tell you all the criteria that you've currently put and filtered this map through. And this is going to allow you to save that, come back to it in the future, never start from scratch. You're going to be finding markets extremely fast. Okay. Now, once you've started to look around, you'll notice that the tooltip box that you're seeing here completely reflects what you've chosen in your tooltip. The reason why this is important is because you're going to be seeing data so quickly, faster than you could in any other platform on the market. And you're going to want to tailor this to your strategy. Median price per acre data. This has never been so easily obtained so quickly. And the beauty of it is you can use this on any range of data that you're looking at. When we're looking at 5 to 100 acres, the median might not make sense. But if I find that I like a market, I can easily switch over to an acreage range and qualify. Does this market have a high enough market value, right, that qualifies it for me to actually market and make my minimum profit? Those are questions we should ask ourselves. And that should allow us to find markets a lot more quickly if we're vetting it against some criteria, like, let's say, a median of at least $70,000. So if I come in here and I start looking for markets, I'm going to look at 5 to 100 just really quick. And I'm actually going to go look at sell-through rate over 6 months. I can easily start going and hovering between each county, immediately seeing the change in data. As I look around, I can start to get a good grasp on where the activity is. This particular county, so Beltrami County, Minnesota, has, in my opinion, some good activity. There is only one pending, but in 3 months, we have almost half that market sold. And in 6 months, we're looking at over 3/4 of it selling. So this is a fast moving market. What is moving in this market? That's the question that you want to ask yourself. Now, I love going into the acreage ranges and seeing where the demand is. But I'll tell you this: when you're doing SMS, you might have a goal of 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever that goal might be. You're going to want to hit that goal. Because of that, ideally you have enough data for a daily send, right? Or a daily SMS campaign. To me, what that means is I don't want to eliminate every single acreage range. If it's possible, maybe a 5 to 10 acreage range is in demand and a 10 to 20 isn't. If it's possible I get a 10 to 20 acre property and I'm able to split it down into 5 to 10 acres, make an additional profit, that's going to launch you forward, especially if you're able to find that deal in a high market value or in a high value market that is not being bombarded with as many mailers or texts as as the next one. And that's really a point that I want to make before we look at Beltrami County here is this heat map is telling me that Beltrami County is not the hottest market by any means. Maybe Clearwater or maybe even Kennebec. Now there are caveats here, right? I didn't put in a minimum amount of comps for 3 months or 6 months, and so Clearwater might have less, but sell-through rate's going to make it look even faster because it's got less comps. So regardless, it matters how I heat map this, and it's going to allow me to quickly start finding places that I normally wouldn't have chosen based on sell-through rate. Most people, when they look for a market, they're looking based on sell-through rate. So you want to take that and flip it on its head and be okay going into markets that don't look like they're the hottest, but clearly based on the data, they're consistent and they're performing. And in comparison, especially to those that are going really, really fast at a slow amount of volume or a low amount of volume, they actually seem to be doing better, right? Under the guise of a smaller sell-through rate. You can also alter this heat map so you can see if I heat map it by the number of comps in a year, for example. Fortunately, Beltrami is still not the top market, so this gives me some leverage, right? I know I'm marketing to some some place out there in the U.S. that the majority of investors are probably not spending all of their time. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to run into competition out here, but it increases your chances drastically to know that there are other investors literally avoiding this county to target those that are more hot, right? So this is how you can start to find the non-obvious high value markets, especially once you start to realize, hey, if I vet the median price or the price per acre in this area for any given range of data, and you start to see it's well above the median that I need to be at to make my 15K, 20K, 30K per deal, you'll start to find that this is a no-brainer. Beltrami County is a no-brainer. If you want to, minimize the amount of work it takes to hit your goal, I suggest breaking it down. Right now, my team is doing close to 75,000 texts a month, and if we were to say, let's just start out at 10,000. If we were to say I want to start out at 10,000, breaking that down, that's about 330 texts a day for a month straight. Now you could, do some more texts one day versus another, but let's just break it out that way. Make this very approachable. That means every single day I need at least 330 data points that have been skip traced and I have at the ready. Is it more manageable to go and find all of the data for the month, find a 10,000 data point list? Or is it more manageable to go day by day or maybe even week by week and get a list of a couple thousand or even a couple hundred if we break it down day by day? And how long will that take us? So this is what I'm proposing. As you start to find that you can find markets a lot faster and you don't have to start from scratch every single time, now it's more and more approachable to go and tackle your daily or your weekly goal rather than your monthly goal, fall behind, and then not hit the metrics or the KPIs that you need to in order to reach 100K per month, right, in revenue. So hopefully that's resonating with all of you. If you're following, drop a fire emoji in the chat. Michael, do you have anything to add here before I hop into
Yeah,
County?
No, I'd love to jump in here because what we teach at Launch Control is to be as targeted as you possibly can. So when you go into like the tooltip in Land Insights, and you're able to really filter down to what very strategically is your buy box, you know exactly what you want to buy, right? And in Launch Control, the biggest batch that you're able to send is 150 text messages at a time. We do that. The reason why we do that is because we tested all of the data, and when you send that out, you get about a 15 to 20% response rate. That is the maximum number of live conversations that you can manage at one time within the system, right? Because you want to be able to do what we call keeping up with the speed of texting, right? So when somebody pulls their phone out of their pocket and looks at it and replies to you, they're still holding their phone. They're still waiting for a response,
Yeah.
right? So you want to know, and we're going to really get into this when we get into the A/B testing next week's session on how to really set up the messaging for that. But the idea is that you want to break your buy box up into little bits and pieces. So you go into your day and you know that you're specifically looking for something that's a bigger lot, that's say like 15 to 50 acres. And you know that everyone that you sent a text to in that batch owns a piece of land that is 15 to 50 acres in that market that you identified through Land Insights. So you go in with a specific talk track in mind, and you're not trying to look from your notes and figure out exactly who you're talking to, going in. So the more segmented you can be, the more purposeful you can be with every batch that you send out, the higher likelihood you're going to have of converting that discovery call into a contract situation.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. There's a lot of points that kind of snowball off of that. And we're not going to talk about it all today, but think about how easy due diligence is if you know what you're targeting. Think about how easy disposition becomes if you already kind of vetted out what you're targeting because of the demand in that area. And so all of these things kind of play a part in one another and are intricately intertwined in a way, but it all starts with finding a great market. So one thing I want to do is I want to hop into Beltrami County. Haven't looked at Beltrami County, so we're going to learn a little bit together. And I want this to be as authentic as possible. But when we're looking at Beltrami County, this is pretty decent movement. Is it the most I've seen? Is it the same as North Carolina? No. But or Florida or maybe Texas or California? No, absolutely not. It's not the most. But this is where there's money to be made because there's clearly activity, there's clearly demand. We just want to locate where in the county is that? Where does it make sense to us? So I'm actually going to hop over here to the zip codes. Any filters that I've applied at this point, we don't really want to apply to our zip codes. If I had a filter of 50% sell-through rate at 3 months, and that's different on the zip code level just because there's a lower quantity of data, then it's going to really affect what I see on the map. So I want that to clear those filters. And once I do that, I'm going to be looking at all of the zip codes within that county. Now, the reason why this is beneficial is because, like Michael said, we're trying to be highly targeted. If we're trying to be highly targeted, we don't really want to be targeting places where we don't feel like the demand is present or we don't feel confident in what we want to dispo. And so this is going to allow you to really extend out, one, your marketing budget, but also the amount of places you can reach because now you're focusing on the best areas within the best areas that you've already found. So one thing you can do is looking at these zip codes one by one. I'm just going to hover around, see if I see a shift in zip code. So I can see these kind of look like they're the same color. So I'm just going to move this heat map around to kind of see if I can get an idea of where the activity is. And so you start to see pretty quickly that a majority of the activity, right? We have 2 active in 56678. We have 15 active in 56601. If you recall, I think there was 25 active in the entire county. And so a large majority of the activity in this county is within maybe 1 to 3 zip codes. So I guess the question that I would ask you, and if you beg to differ, let us know in the chat, but why do you want to market somewhere where the activity is so low that you can't actually prove there's demand? And when you start to see the size of these zip codes, I mean, this is potentially hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of data points. Do you really want to be marketing out there when you have one comp over the past 6 months? So Holly just put in the chat, you need to set up your team for success. Sending too much all at once, quick way to fail. That's exactly right. But think about also setting your team up for success in terms of where you're marketing to. If you give your team a ton of leads, let's say 200 leads over the course of a month, and they're all in a zip code or in zip codes where there's no comps, how quickly is someone able to actually comp that data? And how does that affect your offer? Usually what it can do is pretty much put you in a position where you need a market or give a market value, assign a lower market value to that property because of uncertainty, even if you're trying to rely on a realtor's CMA. And because of that, you're giving that lower offer to the seller, who's obviously going to be more reluctant. So not only that, but now that you're in a market that may not be as in demand, you're going to have to justify this deal to not only yourself, but potentially a funder or potentially a builder or an end buyer. So think about all of that trickles off of finding markets that are high value. So in this market, I
All right,
love
can I
it.
jump in really quick here?
Absolutely.
Just I want to add one more point. It's important to keep in mind too that using launch control in these situations gives you the ability to heat check your heat map. Right. So if you find something that looks like a really good market, but to Holly's point, you don't want to go in on 10,000 data points straight away.
Right.
You want some data to prove that hypothesis. So if you're able to use text, which is the cost compared to say direct mail, for instance, exponentially lower, to get a handful of batches out, see what kind of conversations come back in, and then make the metric data-based decision on whether to make a larger data spend and skip tracing spend in that market.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think if I could even piggyback off of that, there's some things in there's some things uh, in your marketing that will prove to you. Let's say you have a deal and you find out, hey, it's really relaxed subdivide potential in this county. You're going to start to realize you can do that in zip codes, in other zip codes where maybe the data did not show that it was really in demand. But now you've kind of proven to yourself, you know that market. You have partners in that market. You have people who maybe they're not selling land, but maybe you can partner up with them to put a mobile home on that property. There are so many avenues in land, and starting, just like Michael said, little by little and planting seeds in markets is going to give you that opportunity to learn more, plant roots, and not just hopscotch from place to place permanently throughout your entire land investing career. So this was a market in Minnesota, Beltrami's 56601. I right clicked it in Land Insights as easy as it gets and just added that to my saved markets. I like this one here as well, even though there's low activity. It's not that big of a zip code, and I can vet that there's 3 active, 3 sold in the last 6 months. I know that this market's turning, even if it is a small zip code. So I feel kind of comfortable with that. The median price from 5 to 100 acres might not help me, but if I want to go through 5 to 10 acres and I want to start looking at the median price within these different zip codes, I can start to vet, is that high enough for me and my team to make the profit we need? And that's what I was referring to earlier. Now, price per acre is also very useful as well if you're doing things like blind offers. But when it comes to texting, this is just going to make sure that you're vetting the pricing in a market. You're not marketing to any place that's too low, right? If the market values are too low, you might get way too many leads back, to be honest with you. And they're going to be so low quality that it's going to bombard your team. If they're too high on the opposite side of the spectrum here, you might get less response, or you might get less friendly responses. You might need to create a more unique offer, and you might just do less deals in a month. So just making sure we account for that with price in some way. That doesn't mean you don't market to what's low or you don't market to what's high. It means you gauge it and you make sure that you're in a market you feel confident in. That is the point of using Land Insights to find high end markets, high value markets. You want to feel confident in your choice. So that being said, let's hop to another state. I'm going to come down here and just quickly reset my filters. I want to look at let's look at, I have some counties here selected in Ohio. Let's look in Ohio, see if we can find some other good counties to market to. Now, looking at Ohio, can already tell you it kind of looks all over the place in terms of where the demand is. I know Columbus is down here, kind of middle of the state. We have Cleveland up north. There's going to be a lot of activity around those metros generally. So I'm going to start just by looking even more removed than the counties that already look hot. So I'm going to look a little bit further out from these counties that look like they're doing well. This is the time where you kind of zone in, you get in that flow state, and you start looking for different counties. Earlier, I mentioned for 10,000 texts, it might be around 300 per day, right? 330, I think. And because of that, you'll want to kind of work accordingly. How many markets is required to hit that? If you're working on a daily basis, maybe it's only one. If you're working on a weekly basis, right, you're just trying to uh, build out your weekly marketing, you might spend a little bit more time adding counties to your my markets here and saving them as you search around. So this process is super important that you and your team really adhere to and commit to, because you don't want to be finding yourself in a place where you're falling out of you're just falling away from your goal. You do want to be consistent. That might mean sometimes you're finding more than you need. That might mean sometimes that you're finding less than you need in one session. You have to come back to it. Saving that filter is going to be the best way to streamline this every single time. I can see in Ohio already. I'm looking at 5 to 10 acres, and it's kind of low quality or low quantity, excuse me, in Ohio. So I'm going to boost this up to 5 to 100 acres, see if we can find somewhere it's a little bit more active. I like this market here. It's really hot. I bet if I looked at sell-through rate, it's going to be one of the hotter ones. So I kind of want to challenge myself here and look at somewhere that's a little bit less hot than that, or at least when we're looking at a map, doesn't look as crazy fast moving. Just a note on those crazy fast moving counties. This is not something that you necessarily need to avoid. If it's fast moving, that means there's demand. That means it's going to be competitive as well, though. So because of that, you're dealing with other folks also possibly marketing to these people through SMS, through mail, email, RVM, cold call, whatever it might be. And those sellers are going to be more burned out. They're going to challenge you on your price. It's going to be harder to get them under contract. You're going to be up against other people. They may have blocked their number or even turned off their phone. So there's more complications that you'll run into in those highly competitive markets. Now, this is the leverage you have as someone who has access to land insights. Is now you get to go to all those markets that you would have never really cared to go to before because they just didn't seem like they were the most competitive. Generally, in land investing, so a lot of folks out there who taught for years maybe go to Florida, maybe go to the desert in Nevada, Arizona, California, and because of that, you're stuck competing and creating this race to the bottom scenario where you're all after the same inventory. By spreading out and going places where there's clearly demand and it's retail demand, right? We can find areas that we feel confident in, and really you have minimal competition. I'm looking at this county here. I think I don't think I've ever actually looked at this county, but it's moving pretty well. It's got a high enough sell-through rate that makes me feel confident over the moon. And even though the days on market looks a little high, I know that's the average days on market for a retail seller. We're an investor, so as investors, we can kind of work with that price. Now, the median when it comes to 5 to 100 is kind of high. I'm confident as we look at it individually, it's going to be right in my sweet spot, which is around 50,000. I like this sweet spot. In 3 months, it's gotten higher, which is fantastic to see. That being the case, I feel pretty confident with this market in general. There's a couple things I could do, as we talked about earlier. I can look at zip codes. I can potentially look at other data points. All I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to create a level of confidence in this market that makes me feel justified in marketing to it right now. So right now on this call, what we're doing is we're going and we're finding the methodology for how we'll look for counties. You'll notice in Ohio, I didn't go down and filter by anything, but you'll want to do that. You'll want to get an idea of how you can find good markets in each state you're in. If you're going and you're putting 100% in 6 months for every single state, you are doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your business a disservice. You're not looking at what works in any given state. Ohio's much different from Minnesota. California is much different from North Carolina, and it's always going to change. And so by filtering for data as it looks good in Ohio, you're going to start to realize there are markets that you're going to play in that you would have never done so before. Once I find that, I really want to build my confidence further by looking at zip codes. This is going to be something that I filter for again. Let's go and see how I can spell this. Now that I've got that filtered for, once I've got that filtered, I want to look at zip codes again. I'm going to go look at the zip codes here, and I want to just vet, are all of these zip codes looking consistent with the overall county information? Okay, some of these zip codes don't have anything happening in them, and some have enough. Okay, so this, I want to point this out. We're looking at a zip code that looks like it has 900% sell-through rate in 6 months, and it does. However, why is that? The quantity is so low. We have zero active properties. So what does that tell you? This could be what they like to call a honey hole, right? This could be a place where the demand is so high and the supply is so low that every time something gets listed, it's pending. It's immediately pending. All the properties pending sold in the last 6 months clearly show that that's currently in demand. And you can see that same concept over here. We have 2 active, we have 2 pending, we have 7 sold in the last 3 months and 14 in the last 6. This is not something you'd see when you're going around looking at counties. And if you're using Redfin, if you're using Zillow to go county by county by county, this is going to take you a long time. Not to mention if you were doing it zip code by zip code by zip code, right? So this is a way to streamline your market research, save you, and I'm being very conservative here, but 8 hours per week. And I don't even know how much per day as you scale up your marketing. If we're trying to do SMS, finding these in a matter of moments and getting this down is going to be incredibly advantageous for us to send out that marketing with confidence. The main benefit here is speed, okay? In my opinion. I mean, yes, we're aggregating so much data that you cannot find anywhere else, but the speed at which you can find it and mold it to be exactly aligned with your strategy is so important. Earlier, I had mentioned, like, today we're going to be looking at one market after another, and we're talking about the methodology, but imagine putting this into practice, right? In the scope of our webinar, we're going to go step by step by step. But in reality, in practicality, when you go and you start looking for marketing, you should be able to do this in 15 minutes. And maybe sometimes it'll take you a little bit longer, maybe sometimes less. But if you're able to do this that quickly, what's stopping you from getting 333 records or whatever the math comes out to send 10,000 records per month in SMS, right? And as you ramp up, this is going to be the same concept. I think I did the math on 50,000 and it came out to about 1,500 or a little bit over that per day. So if we want to be hitting 1,500 per day, we will have to kind of create more of a broad market research. We can't get as hyper-focused, but that doesn't mean that we give up on filtering for the best quality data and the best quality places that do seem like they're in demand. This is something I do in my own land business. I'll go to the county, I'll vet the individual zip codes, and I'll justify them. If there seems like there's low activity, but it's still performing, I'm going to be comfortable adding that. I just want to make sure that I'm vetting that market in its entirety, because if I get a lead out there in the middle of, the zip code here 43749, I just want to know, has something sold here in the past year, 6 months, 3 months, and how quickly did it do that? What did it look like? What price was it at? If I can validate all of that, I'd prefer to get more leads than less, right? So this is a great way to hone in on these markets and do it so quickly that you could probably be doing SMS as a solo entrepreneur. But I will say, my business tends to find, and Michael, maybe you have a different number in mind, but I'll just say on the low end, or the median average, as if you will, response rate would be around 15%. Does that sound around right? So please, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, when you send messages out of launch, you actually have 3 attempts
Oh wow.
with the sender. So you can send a 30-day follow-up, and you can send an additional follow-up after that. When you aggregate those together, it gets closer to 20%, but you are going to get the majority of your responses to come through in a 5 to 15-minute window, which is again why I said like you really want to have your captive attention on the dashboard in launch control when you press play
Mhm.
on those batches, because most of the conversations that you are going to generate are going to come through in basically real time.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and I didn't realize you're referencing like drip campaigns, which we'll talk about later in the series.
No, prior to that, actually.
Okay.
So, what we want to do is we want to make sure that you can send a text message to your mom and she might forget to respond, right? So a non-response to the first message isn't a hard no. It's not an opt-out unless they actually specifically requested that, right? So you want to be able to have an approach really, and we can talk about this later in the workshop series if we want, but a value-based approach to get them to respond. So if your first attempt on day 1 didn't generate a response or an opt out, then take another shot in 30 days and see if you can get them to respond. So you take a few attempts on those numbers before taking them of your or taking them out of rotation,
Mhm.
is what it comes down to basically in and I think you'd agree with this because you guys are in different marketing channels, of course, right? Is that there is a group of people that are going to be very responsive to text, and
Yep.
you are going to be able to very quickly pivot them into a discovery call situation, maybe even find out some details about the property in a quick hit text exchange kind of way.
Mhm.
There are others that are just going to be more responsive to online sources or more responsive to a direct mail. The question really is for, every 10,000 names that you get, how do you take multiple attempts to squeeze every possible deal out of that 10,000 names, right? Using your marketing channels together to complement one another, but using it in a way that you know at the end of that list of 10,000 that you exhausted every opportunity on that list.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that it hits multiple times. I don't know if I even realized it. So I'll say this too is if it's hovering, let's just say it hovers at 15% on that initial reach out. If you were doing 10,000 a month, 300 and some odd a day, you're looking at about 50 responses that you've got to respond to. Now there's going to be a number of those you don't even need to spend time on. They're an absolute no, but there are going to be some who are interested in your offer or speaking a little bit more. Now you can kind of cater to those on text. You can bring them over to the phone on a discovery call, like Michael mentioned, but that's going to allow you enough data to go off of and create a very systemized stream of leads that is just flowing into your CRM. And if you have multiple reach outs as well as something we'll talk about later, which is drip campaign, then the data that you're choosing, as long as it's high quality, that becomes even more conducive to a successful land investing business because you're building this repertoire, or I should say, yeah, you're building a repertoire of skills that activate the most streamlined process, right? You're building this business off of the highest quality data. It's like the dream list, I used to call it, the dream list of data. And eventually, as that stacks all the way up, as you start doing your remarketing and your drip campaigns, and you start to realize that the only data that's reaching back out to you, the only people that are reaching back out to you are the people with properties you actually want. And so this becomes a lot more simple in terms of negotiation, right? We talked about dispo, comping, all of that becomes so much easier when you're confident in what you're sending out, what you're actually marketing to.
Yeah, Ari, what would you say? I think it's usually about 3 to 5% of the people that you reach out to are going to be willing to take a less than market value deal. Is that about
It,
right, or do you think it trends a little higher?
that's got to be somewhere in the ballpark. I don't know the exact percentage, but most of these conversations that we have they'll always, the leads that we have, they'll always consider less than market value. It's just, is it low enough to constitute us making it a deal, right?
Right.
And it all comes down to this pre due diligence, if you will, right? On the
Yeah.
marketing side, if I'm able to qualify a market to the extent where I feel confident on almost all angles, then when I go and we're going to talk about scrubbing on our next call, which is going to be absolutely massive to your land business. But if I know the data is the highest quality, then there are sometimes ways that we can make deals out of a market value offer, right? And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of targeting data that you want, and targeting opportunities that you want. So
Yeah, and given that, playing off of the the importance of the quality of data, right? Because if when you send out a text message, if you get 15% back in, right,
yep,
the sub question is how many of those actually got you a real conversation and allowed you to get to the point of discovery call, right? So
right,
once you get there, so let's say out of that 50, let's say you are able to get 5 deals out of that, right?
yeah,
But if you could up that number from 3 deals to 5 deals, or 5 deals to 7 deals per 1,000 names that you sent out, that you contacted, then that's probably an extra $30,000 or more, depending on the size of
right,
properties you buy per 1,000. You know what I mean? So the
yep.
money starts to add up really quickly, and you can put it towards that 100K per month tally, and you can see how it can make a massive, massive impact by just starting with better, more strategic market selection.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. The one thing I would add is in this webinar series is not meant to talk about all the different ways you can exit a property, but or exit a deal, but having different tools in your tool belt basically magnifies the effect of SMS marketing, because some of the offers that people want to accept are just a little too high, right? That they negotiate and you just can't make it happen with a normal flip. Maybe you have to think about wholesaling, double closing, subdividing, and titling, like all these other options out there, seller finance. If you have those things as well, a lot of these leads, which you may have in the past not considered a possible deal, all of a sudden has way more potential than you ever thought. And being able to tackle all of those is it's just amazing, because you're already in a market you feel confident in. So going about it is just a learning experience and a great time, in my opinion. Um, the other thing that I wanted to add before we hop off of market research, Michael, is just the other ways that Land Insights can help you when it comes to this market research and vetting those markets. We do have a couple of other areas in the platform that are really conducive to building confidence in a market and your market selection. So in our My Markets, I'm not gonna hop in here today, but in our My Markets, you can actually see all of these markets that we highlighted in pink and that we actually added to our My Markets. In here, you're going to be able to compare and contrast without all the noise of all those other markets or zip codes that you did not choose. So if you want to look at specifically just pricing, or if you want to look at the Gini, which is a data point that we've built for homogeneity to help you understand, is the price per acre consistent within an acreage range or within this market? You can look at all of that within the My Markets without feeling kind of encroached by all this other data. You can filter by it. You can go into the state level. You can stay in the county level. It'll give you a ton of opportunity in there. Now, if you want to save those filters as we talked about before, you'll see all of those saved filters in your Saved Filters tab. And then, of course, you'll need to take notes as you're doing this. And what you can easily do is open up the Campaigns tab in another screen. You can actually track all the campaigns that you're currently working on, whether they're in progress, whether they've kind of been vetted and are ready to be sent out, as well as you've already sent them out. So you can easily understand where you've been and where you're going to be going, and then you can take notes. What realtors have you had to partner with? What is the most consistent deal that you had to do here, or property size that you've found is in demand in this market, or what are you trying to target? All of these things you can add into the campaign section of the platform. So overall, I think this is a great way to break down your marketing and really start finding high end, really high end, and high value markets that'll just push you to SMS, send your SMS campaign immediately, right? Low friction. Michael, do you have anything to add? Is there anything else that you'd like me to touch on before we hop out of market selection today?
Not a market selection. I've got a couple of things that I want to talk about that can, I think, really help support what people are able to do with market selection before they even send a text message and launch. Right. So just part of strategy that's setting the stage for strategy before you even send out a batch. We'll go over that pretty quickly now,
Okay.
and then yeah, we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. So if anybody's got any questions, once again, you can pop them into the chat now, or in about 5 minutes when we get to that part of the presentation.
Awesome.
Okay.
Love it.
Cool.
Yeah, if you're enjoying yourself, put a map emoji in the chat, everybody. I want to see those maps pop up, because we're going to be doing a lot of market research. I'll kind of, after we talk about what would you prefer, Michael? Would you prefer I kind of give folks homework now, or would you prefer I do that at the end?
Let's do it at the end. Yeah.
Sounds good. Awesome.
All right. So, guys, as I said, this is a 5-workshop series, and we're going to do a real deep dive demo into the launch control platform in the next couple, right? Especially the third one, when we're actually sending batches and working leads through the system. But for those of you that are not familiar with Launch as a platform, I want to give you a quick rundown, and then I'm going to give you 2 kind of best practices that I think will really help support everything that Ari went over today. Okay, so for those of you that aren't familiar with Launch Control, we're the #1 SMS engagement platform for real estate investors. We've got a really strong community of land investors, and are well connected with people like Ari and the Land Insights team. So we really want to try to help people just really build up their land investment businesses, which is why we are where we are right now, right? So a couple of things that we do to make this really easy for you is we do done for you text registration. Anybody that's tried to go this alone, getting your company registered with the carriers and text enabled, knows that it can be quite a pain, right? So we do all of that for you, including, if necessary, if you don't have a website set up and ready to go, we do on-demand landing page creation. And that landing page will have all of the necessary elements to pass the carrier filters and get your company set up and registered for texting. This takes anywhere from 1 to 7 days. It is a manual process on their end, but we do expedite things as much as we possibly can. We also have what I would call done with you account setup. So, very similar to what you just saw Ari do, our customer success team does the same thing for text engagement. So you'll be assigned a dedicated customer success representative, and they're going to go in and they're going to do a very, very deep dive into the platform, how to set it up, the best practices to put into place. Really a great resource for you that not everybody has. And then on the tech side, because it is outbound, we have a lot of kind of safety and protective measures that we put into place. So for instance, if you're sending those 10,000 messages over the course of a month, every single recipient is going to receive a unique message. We have systems, we have features within the platform that individualize messages and make sure that everyone is receiving, at least on an algorithmic sense, a unique message. We also have an analytics team that is constantly monitoring the platform. And if we see any spikes on your channel, which is basically what you have, is an individual channel with the carriers, if we see any spikes in, for instance, spam or numbers being rejected, anything that could garner a red flag with the carriers, we'll do a diagnostic pause on your account, make sure that we get that rectified and get you back up to speed, so you never have the threat of having an account revoked and then having to restart, right? We want text engagement to be absolutely foundational to the running of your business. Just like Land Insights, tools that you absolutely have to have as a way to grow and scale your business up to 100K. And so we put those safety protocols in place for exactly that reason. And then if you get to the point where you're doing quite well with the system and you're getting a lot of deals coming in, but you don't want to do the marketing yourself, because let's be honest, marketing is a very different job often from really engaging with sellers, negotiating, finding buyers on the dispo side, the real heart of real estate investing. And if it's not your thing, we have a service called Launch Leads, where we will do 100% of the marketing for you and just pass off seller ready leads.
Yep.
So one of the things that I think is really great about everything that Ari said today is, and it differs quite a bit from distressed property marketing, for instance, is your ability to really try out new markets within a state. Right? So there might be, in any given county, if anybody's ever looked at a county map of Texas, for instance, I think there's about 8,000 counties in Texas, right? So like there's all these different counties are often subgrouped into different area codes. So when you sign up with Launch Control, we want you to pick a market. What we mean by market is not your county that you want to focus on. It's just this, just the area code, right? So if you pick a central hub, let's say you're in Minnesota, which is one of the states that Ari was talking about, and you want to select 651 as your market. Now, if you are a landowner in 218, 320, 507, any of those surrounding areas that are more likely to have rural available land, getting a text message from a 651 number is not going to be surprising. It's in state, it's expected. A lot of times, people that are looking to buy land in the rural areas are looking to build a home out there, to get into agricultural development. They're specifically looking 2 to 3 hours outside of where they live, and so it's expected that it comes from that number. So you want to just pick a central hub, and then that will allow you to hit up all of these little counties with land insights, find out where your sweet spot is going to be, and text them all from that central hub without having to go through changing markets or updating markets or any of that, right? You can, again, be state and regional specific, and it should help you really simplify the process and allow you to really, like I said, heat check the heat map that you find in Land Insights, and have a really strong verified strategy moving forward.
Yeah. Michael, if I can add something.
Yeah.
We've got a question in the chat about texting from different area codes and how that affects response rate and signed contracts. So I just want to add here that the beautiful thing about the launch control, the plans that I know, is it forces you to stay. You don't have to. Obviously, you can reach out to other markets, but if you have access to one market at a time, it forces you to stay in that market and go deeper. And that really allows you to grow in that market, understand that market, rather than just hopscotching from one place to another, trying to find somewhere that is, quote unquote, good. So if I'm looking at Minnesota, I really think that the benefit of launch control giving you a specific market or an area code to focus in is now you get to target within Minnesota all of those counties that using Land Insights are going to return high value profits. So that's the beautiful thing, is as you scale, maybe you send out more SMS over time. You hire team members to help you. You're sending from multiple area codes. You're moving into more markets slowly but surely, or quickly, depending on who you are, right?
Yeah, and you can hack that a little bit with what I'm going to show you guys next, which is just really personalizing how you reach out. So I'll give you an example, like Wisconsin over here, which we're not showing the county map in the images. Wisconsin's beautiful, and a lot of people love going out there in the summers. There's a lot of lakes out there. It's beautiful country. So it wouldn't be that odd for somebody from a neighboring part of even South Dakota or here in Minnesota to reach out and to express interest in buying land in Wisconsin. Right, I spend my summers out there. I'm interested in buying land in the area. I'm texting you from where I live in Minnesota. You have the ability to then have a dialogue with them and a reason for reaching out to them. So one of the things that you can do, because when you look at Land Insights and everything that it offers in terms of really narrowing down your buy box and making sure that you're targeting not only counties that have the right buy to sell profiles, but also have the right land profiles for what you're looking to buy in those areas. It gives you, in marketing terms, what is referred to really as a factual appeal. Right, you've got the facts, everything you need to appeal to that seller based on those facts. What you won't necessarily get is an emotional appeal. Right, so an emotional appeal, like their motivation, why they might want to sell, why they haven't used the land up till this point. And so, and also when you're really straying into these new markets, you might not know anything about these markets, right? You haven't visited them, and you're only going to get so much from a Google Maps kind of view, or even going on and looking at available properties and seeing what that land structure looks like. It's still not going to give you a local's insight, right? So you can use some AI tools to very quickly do this. So again, like cut down on the amount of research it takes in the extreme, so that you can do this in a kind of a factory sort of way. So let me give you an example. This is a prompt that I put together with Claude.ai. Right? So you could use ChatGTP, you could use other ones, but this in particular was Claude.ai. I like this one, and I'm happy to share this prompt with anyone on the call if you're interested. Just if you're a launch control user, ask your customer success rep. They'll get it from me. Or if you're coming in and talking to the sales guys, just mention it to them on the call, and we'll get it over to you. So you're putting in here that you're setting the stage for writing messages when you do this. You're an expert SMS copywriter specializing in land acquisition. And I want it to ask me, I'm telling it that this is 4 SMS templates, and I want it to ask me these specific questions, right? Because this is going to support your research and land insights, right? It's going to let you tell it exactly what you're looking for in terms of a land profile. And then you're going to get it to do this for you, to provide a unique list of geographical, regional, and recreational aspects of the counties in order to provide emotional appeal. So I used these 3 counties: Sherburne, Stearns, and Wright County in Minnesota. And this is very important, is to get it to ask you clarifying questions. This is a hack I got from Callan Faulkner, who is a big name in the land space and really good with the AI stuff. So I lean on her for this kind of stuff. But it's a great little hack, right? And so here's what it'll do. It's going to ask me those questions. And so I just said this, right? I want vacant rural land, 5 to 25 acres, road accessible, commutable from heavy populated areas. And this is what my company offers: fast turnaround with no money out of pocket. We work through local title companies. We're an experienced land holding company. This is personalized to you, right? Exactly what you're looking for. This is personalized to what you think are the most important value propositions for your company. And you put that in, and so what it's going to give you is, for this county, you find out that it has portions of the scenic Mississippi River corridor, that it is part of cabin country culture with weekend getaway potential. So what you'll find are there are very usable insights here from an emotional kind of appeal level that you can use with sellers, or to really kind of frame buyers on the dispo side and confirm some of these things with the brokers that they will be available through Land Insights, to see if those are going to be kind of your target buyers, so you can figure out what your dispo profile is going to be as well. So it gives you the ability to kind of feel like you know how to talk about the area without actually having to put boots on the ground in the area. Now, the reason I say to do this, just to kind of wrap things up, is that when you send messages from launch control, we want you, again, we want to be able to support that really targeted approach that Land Insights is going to give you the ability to do, right? So it's not just 10,000 names and blah. It's 10,000 names and a targeted strategy where you're using some of the factual appeal that you get through Land Insights, and the emotional appeal that you can just kind of put together through this really easy to use system. And by doing that, you can go into launch control and do what we're going to show you how to do next week at this time, is set up an A/B testing profile, where you have different templates that try different approaches from the very light and fast market research that you did, so that you can, again, heat check, right? Send out 3 batches with approach, or send out an A/B test with approach 1, an A/B test with approach 2, and what you're going to get back from that is hard data showing you what people respond to, what generated the most conversations, what got you the fastest in with the seller, and then be able to expand from there. Are you any questions about that in terms of how that syncs up with what you talked about today?
No, not at all. I think that's a great way to explain it, and I think that's leverage that a lot of investors aren't using. So I think that that's a wonderful way to get this to get yourself launched into the the future with your business and just create a lot of success that others might not be able to see. This business has a lot of tweaking to it and a lot of pivoting, and I think you just gave out a huge gold nugget.
Victor, I'm going to answer your question really quick. You've text mailed all the counties in one state. You have data for other states, but worried if past leads I texted from the first state reach back out, they'll get a wrong number message. Um, that would only be if uh, they wouldn't get that. They wouldn't get that. Once it's active, they'll be able to respond as an inbound message if it's a live conversation in launch control. And you can text outside of state lines. It's just a question of whether or not that, like I alluded to on the map, whether or not that area code is close enough to be recognized. So if you're investing in land in Florida and you're texting from a California number, unless you've got a good reason, it's probably not going to resonate, right? But if you were in parts of northern Florida and you're texting from an eastern Georgia based area code, they recognize it, it makes sense, then it's an easier transition for you to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know. Is this the time we talk about homework?
Yeah, let's give people homework. My homework for everybody is pretty simple. If you're not already set up on both platforms, I think it's worth as valuable as these workshops are going to be. You always need to have a one-on-one conversation and talk about your business and the needs of your business. So I would definitely scan those QR codes, set up a time with either Land Insights or Launch Control if you're not currently teed up with either one of the platforms, and really vet that out early for your business. Because again, everything that we talk about in this series, we want you to take immediate action on. Like I want you to if you have Land Insights, I want you to sign off of this and start looking at the states that you're interested in, doing exactly what Ari said, maybe tee up some of that emotional appeal market research that I gave, so that you can start texting them right away in launch control and getting some results back in. So we want you to take immediate action here. So, your homework, again, like you don't have both systems, get them so that we can have you taking action on both platforms today.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the homework, I think I'll just play off of what you said when it comes to markets. I think that the benefit of going and finding the markets before next week is going to be to really help yourself get in the mode of repetition once you're ready to start doing this on a regular cadence. So what I would hope from you, if you have Land Insights, is go find. Generally, I see, if I'm hyper targeting or fixating on certain zip codes and data points, and I'm filtering that data as well, I might walk away with 1,000 to 3,000 data points per county after I skip trace. So I'd say maybe six or seven counties that you really want to target. And if we're doing 10,000 a month, let's start there. 6 to 7 counties, and go do your focused targeting within that. In week 2, we're going to go through filtering that data, finding the highest quality or highest possibility of motivation within that data as well in the Land Insights data platform. The way I would put it is segment this process, right? First, we looked at the county. So how many counties can you find? Then we looked at the zip code. Why don't you segment that as well and look at all the zip codes within the counties that you found? So this is a great way to just focus on practicing one skill at a time. Once you've got that down, this is going to be something that's extremely consistent. Not only is it a consistency for you, but you're now able to understand the process, put it on paper, delegate that out. You have so much more opportunity to hire and just give this task to someone else and still feel confident that it's happening well, because it's in an intuitive platform that gives you all the confidence you already need through that data. So highly recommend you start getting those counties set aside for next week. Next week, we're going to go really in depth on filtering that data, scrubbing, talking about A/B testing with Michael, and I think that's going to be a wonderful time as well.
We have one question from Ian that I want to address really quickly, and then everyone else, if you got any questions, get them in now. We're going to wrap this thing up in just a minute here, so pop them into the chat if you've got them. Ian, one of the reasons, a primary reason we do that, when I that previous slide that I showed, where I talked about risk reduction. When you've got one company, again, when you register with the carriers, you're creating a one-to-one B2B channel with the carriers. And if you're doing business from 8 different markets and sending messages out from 8 different markets, it's a potential red flag. If you've got a single market, or just depending on your level with launch control, a few key markets, then it's more logical that you would be reaching out to a body of people from that base of business than it would be for you to be using 15 different area codes, just sending messages from a random assortment of numbers. It's a potential red flag. We don't want you to get red flagged. We want you to stay as under the radar as possibly can.
Good. Awesome. Any other questions for us? Watchable/recorded. Yes, I believe so. So it'll remain here. In a couple different fashions, right? We're going to have this available. We'll figure out exactly the platform we'll have it available on, but it will be on YouTube as well.
Yeah, so YouTube live channels, there's a little button that says live, or a little category that says live. Click on that; they're immediately available.
And then I had one other question. Oh, looks like 2 might have come in. In terms of the general filters that you might use, I like to put it this way. I cannot tell you the exact filters to use in any given state, because every state will have a different, let's say, standard of what good looks like, right, as it changes. So I don't want to give you any idea that every state's going to have these same exact 3 filters. But I'll tell you what I tend to do is, I think sometimes heat mapping by sell rate and filtering by sold quantity is more difficult than heat mapping by sold quantity, right? Pointing yourself in the right direction, and then filtering by sell rate. Just take this in mind, or keep this in mind, but sell rate's ambiguous. People don't mention this, but sell rate is very ambiguous. I put it in the chat just a moment ago, but it is a prediction of the future based on a depiction of a past time frame's activity. So we can't say for certain that 10% 1 month ago is going to result in 10% this next month. So give yourself some ambiguity when it comes to sell rate. If you're comfortable with 20%, maybe we'll reduce that to 15 in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. And if you're comfortable with 50 in 6 months, maybe be okay with 35 to 40 or 45, and open up the opportunity to find markets you otherwise wouldn't have looked at. Because the truth is, you're still going to be looking at zip codes within them, right? Subs, I would call them sub markets, and it could be an acreage range or a zip code. But now you're opening up the opportunity to find highly targeted areas that are very much in demand that you would have never even opened your eyes to. So hopefully that's a good answer to that. Appreciate you asking that. You're not able to hit that target. That just sets processed. That might be one for you, Michael.
What was the question? Sorry, I missed which one we're looking at.
So from Muhammad here at
the daily target. Okay. Daily target,
yeah.
2,500 SMS. We're not able to hit that target because there's a delay in getting the batches processed. We handle this. Mohammed, I guess it depends on the subscription level that you're at. There, you should have on the upper tiers, the pro and the enterprise account, and in particular, you should be able to hit that. So I would talk to your customer service rep. Make sure that you guys are on the right subscription level and have the right amount of volume available through that, and you shouldn't have any issues.
And if that ever comes down to, I just want to chime in, if that ever comes down to acquiring that much data, Muhammad, definitely reach out to us. Right? It shouldn't be a bottleneck. Having access to a plethora of data points and all the data in the US should open up that funnel, not make it not close it down. Hyper focusing is still going to give you more data if you have more places to look. So just keep that in mind. We shouldn't be bottlenecking at the point of pulling data. Awesome. I just want to say thank you for having me on, Michael. I know we're kind of working together here, but it's been a pleasure to partner with you on this webinar. And for everybody watching, I think we've got so many exciting things, so many exciting topics in the weeks to come. Really excited for next week. You're not going to want to miss that. So definitely be there.
Yeah, no, same sentiments. You know, I'm rapidly or furiously taking notes myself, learning a ton on things that I want to do myself in terms of land investing. So yeah, I hope everybody's finding a bunch of value in it. And like I said, let me just really quickly go back to the agenda for the rest of the workshops. Make sure that you guys join us every Tuesday all the way through April 8th. And again, this will be an actionable plan to get you to $100,000 per month in your business, proven, vetted, actually done by the land investments team using launch control. So, you know, pay attention or join us, pay attention and take notes. And yeah, we're all gonna build some serious wealth in the new year.
And Michael, if I could just plug in, and I hope that this is a good teaser, and I hope that maybe we have time on one of these webinar calls with Ryland to even sneak peek it. But we have a feature coming out in this next month that I think is just so timely for our webinar, which is our comping tool. Yesterday, I got to see the progress of our comping tools development. It's been over a year in the making, so I can't express how detailed this thing is and how amazing it is at marrying AI, our own proprietary algorithm, and then your individual perspective as an investor. That is going to absolutely revolutionize the way that you comp any deal and the speed and efficiency at which you do it. So I just want to plug that in. That's coming out March 31st. I highly recommend, if you don't have Land Insights, hop on a free market selection call. We're going to show you what the platform can do, and you'll even walk away with 1,000 free leads. That is going to be extremely beneficial. Those QR codes that Michael popped up a little bit ago, it's absolutely changed my land business. I highly suggest you look into doing that.
And yeah, Andrew, last question. It's really focused on how to utilize both together. So for today, it was a little heavier on land insights because the focus of our workshop today was just how to find high return land flipping markets. But you know, starting next week on the 18th, when we get into uploading data into launch control and setting up A/B testing, you're going to get a much deeper insight into what the launch control platform looks like and be able to ask some specific questions around that. And then on March 25th, when Ryland's on, we're going to be just really actually going through the business of running these best practices in a live fire situation. So you'll be able to kind of see how both systems can be used simultaneously, quickly, and efficiently.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. Well, thanks, y'all. Really appreciate it. You know, feel free to keep popping comments in if you go back to the replay, and we see all of you at this time next week on March 18th for power of targeted data filtering and A/B texting.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.